Hello, beautiful people. This is Freedom Fighter. Thank you for tuning into our channel, Goldilocks Global Banking News. Everybody knows that Goldilocks is the #1 source for the RVGCR. People from around the world tune in to see what Goldilocks is sharing on the RVGCR. Don't miss your chance and get your latest updates every day. So like, share, and subscribe to this channel to get your daily podcast from the Goldilocks articles on the RVGCR. Brought to you by Freedom Fighter. Hello, fine folks. This is Freedom Fighter, and welcome to Goldilocks Global Banking News. I'm your host, beautiful folks. It is amazing what is happening in the world of the RVGCR. Goldilocks is the actual source for many people providing intel throughout dinar land. But you are fortunate to be able to listen directly from the Goldilocks Global Banking News podcast. You are also fortunate enough to be able to join the Goldilocks QFS Dialogues Room. Click the link at the top of the description, and you will be able to get Goldilocks updates every day in the room, where we also teach members and show them how to prepare for their exchange with 8 simple steps in the QFS room, where we share with them how to establish those relationships with wealth managers and the bankers that are preparing them for their exchange. Today, Goldilocks is sharing information on Vietnam and what they are doing to prepare for the RV, and then also what it means when President Trump talks about leveling the playing field when it comes to currencies. Before that, I'm going to share with you, we had a member that posted in the QFS room, the Goldilocks QFS room today. She says, just wanted to share my update with my wealth manager setting up my broker account and already wants to be aligned and ready. Our second meeting is being scheduled soon, also preparing to meet with the bank president and his advisor. I visited my wealth manager to sign papers for my next step as part of my team, and he just said he wanted to set up the broker account for this event. That's all he said, respecting I'm standing my ground on what I choose to disclose just yet. Wow. Yes, folks, this member is meeting with the president of the bank, his advisor, and the wealth manager is setting up the account for her exchanged money to go into. Ladies and gentlemen, this is happening every day with our members establishing their relationships. Another member, 1057, says, hello, just met with my senior financial advisor and relationship assistant, vice president with Top Bank yesterday. It was a good meeting and felt comfortable about what was offered and their willingness to offer strategies to move forward. He offered to show me stuff on paper at a next meeting that I would set up with them, was told to call either one of them to set up the meeting. But all went very good and just waiting for a couple more appointments with our top banks in my area. Folks, if you are not prepared for your exchange, establishing the relationships with the individuals that would do it for you and manage your wealth, when the time comes, you're going to be behind. Wealth managers don't have an unlimited amount of clients they deal with. And they do have a limited amount of wealth that they can manage. the members in the Goldilocks QFS Dialogues room is really occupying the time of these wealth managers all over the country and outside of the United States as well. If you're fortunate enough to be one of the members of the Goldilocks QFS Dialogues room, we can show you how to do it. Let's jump into Vietnam and also leveling the playing field, brought to you by Goldilocks. Let's jump into it. Folks, you may not know, but President Trump, before he took office, let it be known that he was going to have his team prepare for the digital regulations we need for the RV. Just yesterday, the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, announced a crypto task force. That's right, a crypto task force. Oh, Freedom Fighter, what does that mean? Does that have anything to do with the RV? Well, crypto, folks, is digital. The task force is about the digital banking system. What is our currencies going to be exchanged into? The digital banking system. So this task force develops clear regulations for the new digital banking system. Think about that. This task force is to develop clear regulations for the digital banking system. I'm going to reword that. This task force develops clear regulations needed for the new banking system in order for the RV to occur. They will identify key risks associated with crypto assets or digital assets, collaborating with the industry stakeholders to understand emerging technologies, defining clear terminology, and establishing licensing and registration requirements for crypto service providers, implementing robust anti-money laundering and know your customer procedures. Folks, this is exactly what Iraq did 2 months ago with their digital regulations. And as a matter of fact, their anti-money laundering and know your customer procedures is something that Iraq started in 2023 and finalized in November of 2024 as law or regulation. And here the United States is talking about doing the same thing. As a matter of fact, Republican chair of the House Financial Service Committee stated, he says he was pleased. He says, I am pleased that the SEC has formed this crypto task force. This is the first step in undoing the immense harm caused by the former SEC chairman in his regulation by force approach. This action sends a clear message to the world that when it comes to crypto, America is back. Folks, this is the Chairman Hill who announced days before the inauguration that on day one, the Trump administration would develop clear digital asset regulations for the new quantum financial system. Are you paying attention? Now we have the SEC and the Commodities Future Trade Commission preparing for regulations. Then we have President Trump announcing tariffs. You have to understand, folks, when it comes to tariffs, and then Trump is talking about tariffs, this often leads, the tariffs on countries often leads to the currency of those countries to move. Why? Because typically causing those countries' currencies that have tariffs usually their currencies will go up in value or become stronger because it reduces the demand for their currency due to higher prices. So when something as a price goes up, it becomes in higher demand. Higher demand creates higher values because that particular currency isn't as readily available and used around the world, particularly in the United States. Therefore, that country's own currency will become more valuable in the global marketplace. What's the result? The currency goes up in value. See, people don't realize how calculated President Trump is. His first term, a journalist asked him the question, President Trump, what are you going to do about the devaluation of currencies around the world? His response was, we're going to level the playing field. So speaking of leveling the playing field in terms of currencies, folks, leveling the playing field in terms of currencies generally refers to making different currencies more comparable in value by adjusting exchange rates, not necessarily raising the value of all currencies. That doesn't level the playing field. Leveling the playing field adjust those currencies to their real non-manipulated values. So now let's talk about Vietnam and what Goldilocks is sharing. I hope you are holding on to your dong. This is from Vietnam, announced just yesterday. Quote, Vietnam is introducing a regulatory sandbox for crypto. Let's use another word that you will understand. Vietnam is introducing a regulatory sandbox for digital assets, which means that the Vietnamese government will create a controlled environment where businesses can test new cryptocurrencies or digital asset products under the supervision of regulators. What are regulators? These are the lawmakers. So here in the United States, you have Chairman Hill on the Financial Services Committee saying that day one, the Trump administration will deliver digital asset regulation. Chairman Hill is a regulator, a lawmaker. The Financial Service Committee, those are regulators that sit on that committee. Why? They're lawmakers. They will make the laws and pass the laws for the RV for digital assets. So when you have Vietnam now stating that they on the process of doing the same thing, because Vietnam folks are getting ready. You have to understand that there are key points about a regulatory sandbox. What this is, folks, is, in layman's terms, Vietnam in this sandbox, they are testing the system, their banking system, with the crypto assets or the digital assets that will work with the Vietnamese dong and the digital assets that will move in the Vietnamese banking system to support the Vietnamese dong internationally. The sandbox, just think of a bunch of sand in a box. And within this box of sand, you have a bunch of feet in the box. Just imagine a whole bunch of people with their toes twiddling in the sandbox. 10, 20, 30 people. How many ever you want to imagine. All of these feet in the sandbox. They all feel the same sand. The texture of the sand. The sand moving through all of these people's toes. They all will tell you they have a similar feeling and a similar experience. This regulatory sandbox that Vietnam is now participating in their banking system, is where all the different banks, especially the Central Bank of Vietnam, they're all twiddling their banking toes within the Vietnamese banking system, testing, feeling what it's like for all of these different banks, exchange companies within Vietnam, all of them testing to see how the dong will move in the new digital system under the new digital regulations that Vietnam is preparing for. I'm going to let you in on a little secret. This is per my conversation with Goldilocks. Vietnam could utilize, have you heard of MICA, market and crypto assets, which is the existing digital asset regulations in Europe? Vietnam could potentially utilize MICA regulations for the RV. But Vietnam is in the process of testing their own. So, be as it may, Vietnam is preparing their whole entire banking system for the digital regulations that Europe already has. That guess who else already has? Iraq. Because as of 2 months ago, and the members in the Goldilocks QFS Dialogues room can tell you, Iraq just passed their own digital regulation laws in November. And here we have Vietnam preparing to do the same thing. Folks, digital regulations are needed for an RV. The RV will occur in the new digital banking system. Therefore, there must be laws, regulations in order to protect the banks from lawsuits, in order to protect the exchange companies from lawsuits from whoever. So the regulations are in place. Also, for these regulations are standards, legal standards that the banks must follow for the currency, the digital and paper currency, to move in the new banking system. So when Vietnam has announced that they are introducing a regulatory sandbox for digital assets, it's a controlled environment test, folks. Companies and countries test their digital products and services in a limited setting with a small group of people or a small group of banks that are testing the new system in a controlled environment. Just think of a dress rehearsal or practice before the big game. Iraq has done this 2 months ago. Vietnam is doing it now. Believe it or not, Iraq started testing in 2023. Vietnam is announcing that they're testing right now. But, It is known and it is fact in writing that Vietnam started testing last year with the IMF and the Bank of International Settlements. Now Vietnam is testing the new digital banking system, which is the system for the RV. They're testing it within Vietnam so that they can pass the laws to back it. Final inclusion of Vietnam doing this could promote wider access to digital currencies within Vietnam, growth of the Vietnamese banking system, and protection for the Vietnamese dong itself. Next step after Vietnam test within the Vietnamese banking system is for their international inclusion into the new digital asset-based trading system, which is the QFS. This is Vietnam having a dress rehearsal for the RV. Are you prepared right now? Think about it. I want you to really think at this moment, at the sound of my voice. Can you honestly say, if the RV was today, do you have a relationship in place with the folks that will exchange your currency at the banks and the wealth managers who will help manage your wealth? If you don't, you will be left behind. You'll have a limited access to the people that can help you. Folks, it is time that you put your fears to the side, or your desires to constantly hear and feel the sweet taste of falsehood coming from many of the so-called intel providers that you listen to, because you can honestly say nothing that they've said has come true. But you continuously listen to them, follow them, hopium, believe. What's the definition of insanity? Yes, you know the answer. Wake up, folks, before it's too late and you'll be left behind.
Hello, beautiful people. This is Freedom Fighter. Thank you for tuning into our channel, Goldilocks Global Banking News. Everybody knows that Goldilocks is the #1 source for the RVGCR. People from around the world tune in to see what Goldilocks is sharing on the RVGCR. Don't miss your chance and get your latest updates every day. So like, share, and subscribe to this channel to get your daily podcast from the Goldilocks articles on the RVGCR. Brought to you by Freedom Fighter.